So Chain of Memories received mixed feelings from both critics and players, calling the card-based system original but clunky, and I believe it was only made to fill the fans' appetites while the real sequel was coming out in 2006 and once again on the PlayStation 2. I'm sure this happened to most of us who only played the first game. When we popped in Kingdom Hearts 2 and paid attention to the story, we couldn't follow what the hell was going on because it turned out Chain of Memories had plot elements that transferred to this game. Who's this new character we're in control of? Why is Sora asleep in this chamber and looks older? What's with these guys in the black coats? Who's this Nominee girl? That was all answered in Chain of Memories, and the few people that did play it had to fill in the story for everyone that didn't.
That was pretty crappy on Square's part, and I'm sure we would have been fine waiting a little longer and have everything that was brought up in Chain of Memories perfectly playable in Kingdom Hearts 2, but at this point it doesn't matter. We now have the true sequel to go over, and I've had my PS2 copy since 2007, but sadly it's packed away right now, so here's my footage of it from the Angel of Darkness review.
Same with the last two games though, we'll be looking at the final mix version on the PS4 with extra content. Strap yourselves in, boys and girls, there's a lot to talk about here. Previously on Kingdom Hearts, members of the organization were defeated by our heroes, and Naminé put Sora, Donald, and Goofy in these pods for a whole year so that they could regain their lost memories. But meanwhile, our attention is on Twilight Town, which is home to this other teenager named Roxas, who's spending the last days of summer vacation with his friends, taking part in manual labor to go to the beach, and engaging in Nerf sword battles where for some reason Vivi, Cypher, and Setzer are there. I guess Kefka, Ultimecia, and Necron are just chilling in the background while they wait for these three. Before the battles though, Roxas and the gang realize that the photos they've taken have been stolen, as well as the very word photo. That's kinda specific, and the kids are all framed for the thievery, but that side plot doesn't go anywhere at all. Everyone just kinda forgets after a while, but we see that the thieves are these white figures who remind me of Voldo from Soul Calibur by the way they move, and that Roxas is somehow able to wield the Keyblade and destroy them. This particular group of foes was controlled by a returning Axel, where he also reveals to Roxas that they have some history together. He was actually an Amnesiac organization member at one point and they were best buds. But Roxas was eventually going rogue to find out who he really is, and this led him to a fight with a blindfolded Riku which he lost. So in his comatose state, he was placed in a digital version of Twilight Town to prevent him from seeking any more answers, while Axel infiltrates the digital world so he can get his best friend back. Simultaneously, Roxas keeps having strange dreams about the events of Kingdom Hearts 1, and this is where Naminé comes in after Roxas finds her in Twilight Town's deserted mansion. But she decides to drop a bombshell the size of the moon by telling him that he was never actually meant to exist for reasons we're not sure of yet, and then he needs to investigate the mansion and wake up Sora from his deep slumber. I don't know if maybe the mansion is like a mirage of Castle Oblivion or something, but anyway, Diz, now voiced by the late Christopher Lee, comes in the nick of time to stop Naminé from saying anything else. After an intense duel with Axel, Roxas locates Sora's chamber with Diz meeting him there and explains that in order for Sora to awaken, Roxas will need to merge with him, meaning he'll no longer exist. It's a pretty tragic fate for the poor kid, but while unleashing his rage towards Diz, he accidentally opens the pod with a sleeping Sora, who looks like he's aged way more than just a year, ending the torment Roxas has been going through, a scene that to this day still gives me goosebumps. You do feel really bad for Roxas, knowing that you were never meant to be alive and your mere existence is entirely meaningless. It's rather heartbreaking. I guess after realizing that, he wouldn't hesitate to merge with Sora, but that's still quite brave of the dude. It's a shame that Roxas's friends don't get as much character development as he does, but I suppose it doesn't really matter in the long run. Our focus is sorely on Roxas for the first 3 hours of the game and no one else. Yes, this entire prologue does take 3 hours. Well, after a begrudgingly long prologue, Sora, Donald, and Goofy are finally awake and very briefly run into King Mickey again, who points them in the direction of Master Yen Sid. Yes, I know his name is Disney backwards, that's very clever, my mind is completely blown. Yen Sid informs them that there are more Heartless roaming around the Disney worlds, and we now have to deal with these new white figures called the Nobodies. What is a Nobody? Pay attention folks, because there's a quiz afterwards. Okay, so when someone's heart is lost to the Heartless, they become a Heartless themselves. But if someone with a very strong heart turns into a Heartless, that also creates a Nobody, which is nothing but an empty shell that, just like the Heartless, have no feelings or emotions. In layman's terms, Heartless are hearts without a body, while Nobodies are bodies without a heart. And this means when Sora turned into a Heartless in Kingdom Hearts 1, that created Roxas, who's Sora's Nobody. And since he also had Kairi's heart inside him during that time, that also created Naminé, who's Kairi's Nobody.
I counted 12 times I had to use the word heart in that last paragraph.
The Nobodies are controlled by the organization, now called Organization 13, who are a group of 13 powerful nobodies that have developed their own personalities. Axel seems to be the only one, though, that has any sort of feelings, as we can see from him deeply caring about Roxas and losing him after such a long time bonding. All the organization really want to do is use Kingdom Hearts, that's now as big as a planet, to collect the hearts Sora's been releasing from Heartless and become whole again, to have emotions and go back to their normal selves, which is perfectly understandable, but since that basically means killing people to reach that goal, that's a big no-no and we have to stop them. We already took care of 5 of the organization members thanks to Chain of Memories, and Roxas is no more, while Axel's gone to do his own thing, so the rest of Kingdom Hearts 2 is just traveling to both old and mostly new Disney worlds to rid of the Heartless, seal more keyholes, and stop the remaining members of Organization 13. Maleficent is resurrected as well, but she's barely significant at all in this story, and honestly I think her new henchman Pete does the most work here. Maleficent is always talking about ruling the world but saves Sora and the gang a couple of times, although she doesn't want them to think she's on their side, while Pete on the other hand actually attempts to stop them. It's a pretty confusing plan. Anyway, the new lineup of Disney worlds consists of the Land of Dragons from Mulan, Beast Castle from Beauty and the Beast, Timeless River from Steamboat Willie, Port Royal from Pirates of the Caribbean, Pride Rock from The Lion King, Space Paranoids from Tron, and finally Disney Castle itself, for only a short time. About halfway through the adventure though, we get quite the major plot twist when we meet with King Mickey again, who explains to us that Ansem from the first game was not in fact Ansem at all. This guy is the real Ansem, who turns out to be Diz unveiled. The Ansem we fought before was the Heartless of the real Ansem's apprentice, Xehanort, and since Xehanort had a strong heart, there's also a nobody named Xemnas that's the leader of Organization 13, and the hooded figure we fought as a super boss in the first Kingdom Hearts game. This information dump kinda makes our heroes react like first time players.
We went through all that trouble to defeat an imposter?
Eventually, Sora, Donald, and Goofy step foot into the real Twilight Town to not only find out that Kairi's been kidnapped by Organization 13, but to also access a passageway to the world that never was, which is where Xemnas and Kingdom Hearts are located. When they get there though, there are a ton of nobodies waiting for them. Axel comes in the nick of time, however, and helps Sora fight them, but he takes a hit and ultimately kicks the bucket after they've won. In this new world, Sora confronts with a hooded Roxas as well as gaining assistance from another hooded figure that's revealed to be Riku with a similar appearance to Ansem, or Xehanort's Heartless, whichever you prefer. Riku had to harness the power of darkness to win his fight with Roxas, and I guess that's why he suddenly looks like him. But now thanks to the real Ansem appearing out of nowhere, he uses his laser cannon to destroy Kingdom Hearts and sacrifice himself in the process, while also somehow turning Riku back to normal. Now that Sora, Kairi, and Riku are finally reunited after 3 games, all that's left to do is defeat the last few organization members, and then finish off Xemnas. Even though Kingdom Hearts now has a huge gaping hole, Xemnas has no problem with just simply starting from scratch and ordering Sora to release more hearts from Heartless. Sora and Riku say balls to that and battle Xemnas in his many forms, and the last form, let me quickly say, was such a cool fight. The scenery is breathtaking, the music kicks ass, it was a little easy, granted, but Xemnas can still hurt a lot if you aren't careful, and I love the climax where Sora and Riku kept deflecting what looks like 1,000 lasers. It was great seeing the teamwork between the two of them, and made for one overall incredibly epic final boss battle. Winning triumphantly, Sora and Riku wander around afterwards and end up in the Realm of Darkness, but a Gate of Light suddenly appears, which returns everyone to Destiny Islands, bringing the series to a solid conclusion. Nope, I couldn't say that with a straight face. Well, after the credits, Kairi finds a letter washed ashore with the King's seal, and the gang open it up. What's inside the letter? We'll have to wait until the next game. And the secret ending this time shows 3 new Keyblade wielders in an intense brawl outside a graveyard with a new villain to face. I had to borrow this clip from YouTube because unlocking this ending is a pain in the ass to do. More on that later. So guys, did you follow the story okay? No? Well, welcome to the Kingdom Hearts series. I guess it's not really that hard to figure out in the grand scheme of things, just wait until we get to Birth by Sleep and Dream Drop Distance. But if even the voice of your main character says the story's very complicated, you may have a problem.
The story is a lot more complicated this time around. It's a big issue with Kingdom Hearts 2, is that there's all sorts of identity confusion.
They're definitely not with us.
I should be grateful though that there's not nearly as much talk about light and darkness as the first game. It's more about the Nobodies and Organization 13 becoming whole again. Just like the first game, the Disney and Final Fantasy stuff are more like detours from stopping the Nobodies, which is not a bad thing by any means, and there's plenty of fan service for both crowds. Character development and writing hasn't gotten much better unfortunately, but I like that the Disney worlds follow more closely to the movies than the previous 2 games did. For example, with Halloween Town, you also step into Christmas Town this time, and with Olympus Coliseum, you can still participate in arena battles, but you also get to explore the underworld for a little bit. I enjoy the brand new worlds too, and with a slightly more linear design to them, I find most of them a lot more fun too. There is a little exploration as well, but mostly for searching treasure chests, and even though some areas can be rather spacious for its own good, I overall prefer the worlds to be this way, unlike what the first game tried to do, which made progression really confusing. And interestingly, after clearing each of the worlds, there's a second quest that's followed, with a different story and new Heartless to defeat. It could be seen as padding a little, and yeah, I totally understand that, but I don't mind it that much. It gives me a chance to level up some more and make me more badass than ever. And speaking of which, combat has also been improved tremendously since the last two games. There's no card system anymore, we're back to the old ways of hacking and slashing, with much more flow and speed. Sora may have been asleep for a year, but it's done wonders for his fighting abilities. He's a hell of a lot faster than he was in the first game, and there are even more attacks you can equip as you level up. Just look at this long list of abilities when you reach level 99, god damn. When you begin, you still have the basic 3-hit combo, but by endgame, Sora can pull all kinds of acrobatics and tricks, and it feels so damn good once you're able to. Added to Kingdom Hearts 2 as well, we have various drive forms granted by Sora's new clothes. Not only does it make him look much better, but with these different forms, as long as Donald and or Goofy are in your party, you can make Sora fight even better than he already can. The Valor form requires Goofy to use, but it gives Sora a set of high damaging combos and improves his strength. The Wisdom form relies on Donald to use, and the regular attacks are incredibly weak, but creates devastating magic attacks. Master form needs both Donald and Goofy, and is an excellent combination of strength and magic attacks. The Limit form added to the final mix version doesn't require anybody to activate unless you perform the same techniques from Kingdom Hearts 1, which have become so much more powerful since then. And lastly, the final form, also exclusive to Final Mix, is basically an even better Master form, and will automatically reflect enemy attacks right in front of Sora. Using a drive form too often will sometimes result in Sora transforming into an anti-form, which you can't cancel until the drive gauge is all the way down, and you don't earn experience points from killing enemies, but his attacks are still very quick and provide a decent amount of damage, so the game does punish you for abusing the drive forms, but not too much to make the battles feel impossible. All of these drive forms kick ass in their own ways, and they can also be leveled up through certain methods to add even more abilities, including ones for normal Sora, like an aerial dodge to guard yourself in midair and can also act as a double jump, or the glide ability to make retreading each of the worlds a lot faster. And with these drive forms at max level, it becomes so much fun zipping around these worlds and finding everything I missed. This particularly helps while obtaining Final Mix's added puzzle pieces that give you rewards upon finishing a set. The last two you'll definitely want to get done. Sora is basically a one-man army in this game, and yeah, sadly your party members still suck at combat. I really hope Square works on that in Kingdom Hearts 3, but as long as I get healed and they can get the enemies off my back for a little bit, I'm able to adjust. Thankfully though, your party does make up for their shortcomings by assisting you with the new limit breaks. At the cost of a full magic meter, Sora and one other character can pull out a strong and flashy attack to spice the battles up a bit, and provide crowd control as well as hitting hard enough. And as long as you keep pressing the right buttons, you're invincible until the limit meter runs out. These and the new drive forms almost make the new summons entirely useless. Though I will say that Peter Pan's attacks can be pretty handy sometimes, and when the genie has access to the Master and Final forms, man does he hurt. Keyblades are also a lot more diverse than the last two games. Instead of just making the numbers go higher, they have their own set of strengths and weaknesses and are good for different situations, so you can fight how you want to fight. The only downside to Kingdom Hearts 2's combat is that if you're playing on the normal difficulty, it can be a bit too easy since Sora becomes so skilled with the Keyblade as the game goes on, so I'd recommend playing on Proud mode if you can. It'll be pretty tough at first, especially with these jackasses in the Land of Dragons, but once you clear Beast Castle and get the Cure spell, you'll be good to go for the rest of the game and have a decent challenge. And even if you die in some of the boss battles, there's a chance that Mickey will step in and bring Sora back to life, all while using his own Keyblade skills and delivering some serious pain. Don't screw with Mickey Mouse. But these boss fights are a very good time. They're a lot more cinematic than they were in the last two games, and that's largely thanks to the reaction commands, which are basically QuickTime events, but I think these are used in the right way. They're not too intrusive, they keep you focused on the battle, and failing them is just a slap on the wrist. The only bosses I didn't really like was Zaldin because of his windshield and barely giving you enough time to press the reaction commands, and I also hated Demyx because if you don't kill all of his water clones, then you just get a game over for absolutely no reason. As good as the boss fights are though, sometimes it does feel like their attacks are next to impossible to avoid, even when you're guarding. Like take the Zigbar battle for instance, what the hell am I supposed to do here? I suppose while I'm complaining we should address the elephant in the room, Atlantica. Yeah, I couldn't talk about this game without mentioning this. Unlike the original title where you were battling Heartless underwater, this time there's absolutely nothing going on other than button time musical numbers and Ursula making a brief return. I'm amazed they bothered adding swimming controls at all for this area when there are only like 2 rooms you can access. I can see why musical segments were added, after all Disney movies are very well known for their catchy songs, but it just does not fit here.
Wishes really can come true if you want them to. And this happiness inside I owe to every one of you.
the button timing isn't that difficult either. It's definitely possible to clear these songs on your first try, but it's just so boring. I'm glad there are only 5 of them and there's no second visit to Atlantica, and I know this is a totally optional world, but there's a very good reason Atlantica is a lot of people's most hated world in the game, and arguably the entire series. You know you're in for some finny fun when the recommended battle level is at 0, and Sora should never ever sing.
Darling, it's better down where it's wetter. Take it from me.
And oh look, the gummy ship also makes a comeback. Goody. Well, actually, I'm happy to say that these are much better than they were in Kingdom Hearts 1. They can still be pretty disruptive, and I'd rather not do them, but if I had to use the gummy ship, I'll take this over Kingdom Hearts 1. There's way more energy in these levels, you have plenty of different blueprints to choose from, the editing tool's still at your disposal, which is now even more confusing than it was last time, and you're presented with a new challenge at each stage. A few of the levels can drag, I'm not going to beat around the bush, but like I said, these are certainly more preferable to what we had in the first game. Synthesizing equipment is now also way easier than it was previously. You'll collect a huge chunk of the required items as you play through the story, and by that point you won't need to obtain too many to create any remaining items, and this includes the Ultima weapon, which again is far less strenuous to make than in the first game, though a couple of the rare materials needed does ask that you complete optional worlds like Atlantica and 100 Acre Wood. Filling up all of Jiminy's journal to unlock the secret ending also needs you to collect a freaking truckload of synthesis materials, and honestly, I didn't bother doing it. It's far too exhausting to be worth it, and I've already done my fair share of extra stuff. There was the Cave of Remembrance added to Final Mix, which requires you to max out all of your drive forms to traverse. At the end of it, there are tougher data battles with all 13 organization members, including ones from Chain of Memories. Sephiroth wants a rematch with you and has brought more attacks with him. There's Mushroom 13 that provide different challenges to earn some extra rewards like synthesis materials, and a swanky new Keyblade once you reach the necessary scores for each one, and I think it's oddly even more powerful than the Ultima weapon. You got the Paradox Cups to do in Olympus Coliseum, with the last one being a 50-floor gauntlet, putting you up against everything you face in the game and even a few exclusive battles. And lastly, there's the Lingering Will, the hardest son of a bitch you'll ever face in a Kingdom Hearts game. So many attacks, so many ways to kill you quickly, and a ton of memorization involved. But after hours of trying and I finally got him, I let out a triumphant, "Yeah, eat it, asshole!" I had a lot of moments like that with these extra bosses, and it felt great when I beat every single one of them. But the major setback is that unless you're really good at the game, you're gonna have to grind to level 99 if you want to even stand a chance, and that can get pretty dull.
This was actually the first RPG I've ever grinded to level 99 because I was having so much fun and wanted to do those extra battles, so that should tell you how much I would highly recommend playing this game.
Kingdom Hearts 2 was one of the best action RPGs I've ever played, with its satisfying as all hell combat, and Yoko Shimomura has once again made a fantastic soundtrack that sounds even better with the remastered versions. My absolute favorite piece has to be The Other Promise when you're fighting Roxas in Final Mix. The only thing that immediately turned people away from Kingdom Hearts 2 was the first 3 hours, and I agree it's very slow and monotonous and you'll need a lot of patience for it. But if you're able to press through it, you'll then come to experience a truly incredible adventure with lots of fun hack and slashing, colorful characters, and plenty of fan service for both Disney and Final Fantasy lovers. The writing and the script still doesn't make sense half the time, just like the first game in Chain of Memories, but the story still keeps you engaged and wanting to play more. This game alone is worth getting the HD collection for, and having 3 other playable games along with it is a really sweet deal. I definitely wouldn't recommend Kingdom Hearts 2 as your first one if you're new to the series, unless you'd rather read up on the story beforehand, but it takes a lot of the things that worked in Kingdom Hearts 1, multiplies it by 100, and I guarantee that lovers of the genre will find something to enjoy.
Which leads us to Kingdom Hearts 358 Days Over 2 from the Nintendo DS. Jesus, that title sucks, but rather than carrying on with the plot from Kingdom Hearts 2, we're instead turning our attention back on Roxas and learning about his past with the organization. We'll cover that after a couple of videos though, and as for what the next game is, we're actually going to return to the Tomb Raider series real quick, or rather, take a look at a couple of spin-offs. It's a double review of Lara Croft and the Guardian of Light and Lara Croft and the Temple of Osiris. Hope you all look forward to it. I will see you later.